Hey guys, I'm your host Tara A. Devlin, and welcome to this week's episode of Kowabana, true Japanese scary stories from around the internet. My latest book, Yamakowa, The Haunting of Mount Yummy, is now out. If you like terrifying mountain stories full of ghosts, monsters, and other creepies, then do check it out. It's available on Amazon right now. This week, we're looking at some terrifying happenings that all take place in the darkness of night. What's really lurking out there? Sometimes it's best not to know. First up is a young man who is dared to spend the night in a famous ghost spot by some of his friends. But what will happen if he really goes through with it? He surely won't bring anything back with him, will he? Find out in Basement Under the Ghost Spot. This happened 6 years ago, when I was still just a teenager. My friend, two older friends, and I decided to visit a famous local ghost spot late one night. It felt a little weird to visit a ghost spot with just 4 dudes, but my friend wasn't very good with supernatural stuff, so the older guys proposed we visit a place so they could tease him a little. The place was a building deep in the mountains, so we drove there. There were all sorts of rumors about the place, like 10 people had burnt themselves to death in the basement, or that there were the spirits of fallen warriors roaming out the rear. All sorts of stuff. Of course we're going to check out the basement, the older guys said, making fun of my friend, but when we actually got there, they were like, "Holy crap, this place is scary," and just stared at the building from inside the car. "Aren't you getting out?" I asked them. "You first," they said. And so I tried to get out, but my friend had been holding onto the edge of my shirt sleeve ever since we got there. "I'm getting out," I said, and tried to make him let go of me. "This place is dangerous, I'm telling you, dangerous," he said, a terrified look on his face. He didn't want me to leave. Yet the older guys urged me to keep going, and so I brushed my friend off and got out of the car. I walked over to the building and then did a quick lap of it. I looked over the edge of the cliff out the back and then returned to the front of the car. "Did you see anything?" the older guys asked, their faces full of curiosity. "Nothing," I replied. Nobody made any move to get out of the car, so I turned to the older guys in the front and said, "You're the ones who said we should come here, right? So get out. You wanted to see the basement, yeah?" "Aren't you scared?" they said. "Not really," I replied. "Well then, why don't you spend the night?" One of them, I'll call him A, said. "And why should I spend the night here?" I replied honestly. "You said you're not afraid, right? If I give you 100,000 yen, will you spend the night then?" A said. "I'll do it if you pay me right now." "All right," A said, and fished 10,000 yen notes out of his wallet. "Why do you have that much money?" I asked with a laugh. "I won big at pachinko and the slots," he answered. "If you ask me to give it back to you later, I'm not gonna," I said, taking the money. The deal was made. "This guy's an idiot," the older guys laughed. But I laughed back at them. "You're the one who gave me 100,000 yen, so who's the real idiot here?" My friend didn't say a thing, just sat in the back seat with his head down. "Have fun in the basement," they said with a smile. Having just received 100,000 yen, I made my way down into the basement quite happily. It seemed there was some truth to the legends of the fire down there, and when I turned my light on, the place was black and charred everywhere. The basement wasn't that big, and the only thing I could really see was what looked like a bathtub. The walls are all black, I said after returning to the car. There were rumors about a fire or something, wasn't there? Oh, the older guy said, apparently enjoying that news. All right, we'll be back to pick you up at 9 a.m. tomorrow, they said. And then they left me alone as they went back down the mountain. They are gonna come back and pick me up, right? I was a little worried, but I went and found the best looking place to lie down in the building, wiped the dust away, and then sat down. It was around 1 a.m., so I started playing around with my phone to kill some time. I thought I'd give someone a call and waste some time that way, but I was barely getting any reception as it was, so I gave up. However, being that deep in the mountains, I started to think that I was less scared of ghosts than I was of wild dogs. The abandoned building was bare and open, other than the basement. But the basement was horrifically dirty, and also really damn creepy. It would be too dangerous to sleep down there, I thought. I was so bored that I started to think about what I would do if a ghost did appear. Well, it would be a shock, sure, I thought. But then I was overcome with sleepiness and soon fell asleep. When I woke up, it was just after 5 a.m. Being summer, it was already rather bright, and I decided to go for a quick walk, simple enough to not get lost. The sight of wild rabbits was oddly moving, and I thought it was nice to be out in nature like this before I returned to the abandoned building around 9 a.m. By that time, the older guys still hadn't arrived to pick me up. I looked for a good place to get a signal, and then I called them. Sorry, we were sleeping, they said. They spent the night at my friend's house, and they sounded half asleep. Just as I had expected. Whatever, just come and get me already, I said, and then waited for them to arrive. It was around 11:30 when they arrived, with my friend and A's girlfriend in the back. Did anything happen? They asked. Not a thing, I replied. Fair enough, they said, sounding bored, and that was that. They started the car and we began our descent back down the mountain. A short while later, I realized that somebody was grabbing my ankles. It was me, my friend, and A's girlfriend in the back, and I could see both of their hands clearly. Are you serious? I thought, the hairs on my arms raising on end. I thought I was losing it. It was summer, so I was wearing shorts with my knees visible, and the hands were grabbing my legs. Or rather, it was like the fingernails were clawing into my leg, causing me pain. If I made a fuss, then everyone else in the car would panic. So I wondered if the thing grabbing me was trying to get the car to crash. I did my best to stay calm, thinking that it was a fairly typical story you might hear anywhere. Of all people, I couldn't let my friend sitting next to me see what was going on, so I sat forward and tried to hide my legs in the shadows of the seat in front of me. As we reached the bottom of the mountain, the feeling of hands grabbing my legs disappeared, and after we stopped by the gas station, A's girlfriend said, "I want to get some mini-stop fries." So we headed over there. After everyone else got out of the car, I quietly called A over, and we moved away from the others. "What's wrong?" he asked. "That was close," I sighed. A looked at me like he had no idea what I was talking about, so I showed him the blood and nail marks the mysterious hands left on my legs. "They grabbed my legs right as we left," I said, and A's face turned pale. "Are you serious? You didn't do this yourself?" he asked. I showed him my clean nails. You really think these could have done this? How could I have cut myself with these? Well, either way, that was too close, I said. Why didn't you say anything? You gotta speak up, man. If I said something, then you would have panicked, and we would have crashed. Yeah, that's true. Nice decision, right? Yeah. Don't say anything to the others. They'll be traumatized. Yeah, but you shouldn't have told me either. Jeez, it's terrifying. Yeah, but I gotta tell someone, you know? When we were done, we returned to the others, quietly finished our shopping, returned to my friend's house, and then I went straight back home from there. I unlocked the door once I got back and went inside. I lived in a one-room apartment at the time, and as soon as I opened the door, I saw someone else was already inside. It was a man with a shaved head, wearing a jersey and hunched over like a cat. I lived on the 4th floor, so I thought the only way he would be able to escape was by pushing past me and running out the front door. So I stood my ground and called out, "You here for something?" The man didn't turn around. "What? You a ghost or something? I can see your feet, you know," I said, but still he didn't turn around. I watched him for a moment, but he didn't even twitch. "Look, I don't care why you're here, but don't come into my house with muddy feet like that," I said and approached him. He quietly walked over to the veranda, distancing himself from me. What's with this guy? I thought. But he didn't appear to be holding a knife or anything in either hand. "Look, I don't have anything for you to steal, and I won't call the police, so just get out," I said to the man, sitting down on my bed. I continued to watch him, but he didn't say a thing, nor did he move. "You're not giving me much choice here. I'm gonna have to toss you out myself," I said, but still there was no reaction. However, when I turned to look at the clock on the wall, and then faced him, the man turned just his face and looked at me for the first time. His eyes were small and thin, with a bulbous nose, and his mouth was slightly agape. There was something about his features that made him look slightly different to a regular person. He seemed to be glaring at me somewhat, his eyes focused straight on me, and I looked right back at him, my gaze not wavering. I lived on the 4th floor, and the door had been locked, so I wondered if maybe he wasn't of this world, but he was too distinct to be a ghost, and he seemed alive, so I was about 80% sure that he was a living person who had broken into my apartment. I stood up and told him straight what I felt when I first saw him. "Are you mentally disabled, maybe? I'm not gonna get angry, so please leave. Come on." I grabbed his arm, but the feeling was strange. It was creepy, like grabbing a cardboard box full of stuff. He moved his arm as though trying to shake me off, and I let go, mostly because of how strange he felt to the touch. I rushed over to the front door, opened it, and then went outside. I waited a little, and as I decided to observe the area in front of the apartment below mine, I suddenly heard the toilet door inside slam violently. I cautiously opened the door, but nobody was there, and nothing looked out of the ordinary either. Next, I heard a loud, violent bang come from the small double-doored cupboard above the sink. What the hell? I thought, and I opened it. And inside, I saw the face of a man in his late 30s, staring back at me. The two of us looked into each other's eyes, like we were having a staring contest. Well, not like you're gonna say anything even if I do, I said for some reason, and then I closed the cupboard doors. Nothing much happened after that, and so I took a quick nap before making my way to work. I worked with a woman, H-san, who, by her own admission, could see ghosts and often said our store was haunted, so I decided to talk to her about what happened the night before. H-san, have you ever been to that place in the mountains? I have, sure, but I never want to go back there again. Is it dangerous? More dangerous than you know. Are you going to go there? No, but I heard that the basement was especially bad. I mean, people died there, didn't they? After that, I asked if she knew what type of place it was, and apparently it was like a reformatory or something where delinquents and mentally disabled people were housed. At least, that was what she had heard. It was something like that. It was a pretty well-known story. That seemed pretty close to what I had been thinking, and then I remembered the guy with the bald head. While I was working, my phone was always in the office, but one of the part-timers came out and told me that it was constantly ringing. Wondering who it could be, I checked the missed calls list in the office and, again, my phone started vibrating as a call came through. You finally picked up. It was A. Your buddy has been acting really weird all this time, he said. You gotta get over here, please. He pleaded desperately. I could hear someone constantly screaming in the background. Realizing that something was terribly wrong, I called the owner, got permission to leave early, asked my other co-workers to cover for me, and then made my way towards my friend's house. He lived alone, and so our two older friends, A's girlfriend and I, often spent our nights there. When I got there, it seemed all four of them were there again. He didn't live too far away, so it took me less than 30 minutes to arrive. Ah! Someone screamed incessantly as I went inside. B was holding our friend as he screamed. A's girlfriend was crying, and A was gripping a cup full of water or something. There was also an old woman there I'd never seen before, who I later learnt was the landlord. I yelled at A in an accusatory tone. Was he doing drugs or something where we couldn't see him? Why on earth would he do that? A replied. He's got to be possessed or something. He was half panicked. What the hell are we going to do? I didn't know what to do, so I changed places with B and grabbed my friend's shoulders. Hey, what's wrong? Calm down, I said. But he didn't seem to hear my voice, and he just kept screaming. I heard that his younger sister had apparently been possessed by a kitsune spirit once, and that was probably why he didn't like anything related to the supernatural so much. It's okay. It's all in your head. Come on, you can do this, I said right by his ear. But still he just kept screaming, so much that he was foaming at the mouth. Unable to take it anymore, I screamed. Just shut up! Calm down! I grabbed his hair and jerked his chin upwards. Then, just as I thought he'd finally stopped screaming, he suddenly let out a shrill cry and then buried his face in my arms. What's wrong? Are you okay now? I asked him, but he shook his head left to right in my arms. Look, let's just have a drink, okay? I tried to pry him off me, but again he screamed and called out my name twice. Don't let go of me, he cried. There wasn't much else I could do, so we stood there like that for about half an hour. After he calmed down somewhat, I switched places with A's girlfriend and got her to watch him while I went outside with A, B, and the landlord. We apologized to her and then the three of us spoke together. The landlord was apparently there because she lived next door, and there had been several complaints. "It's because we went to that place," I said, and then I told B about the hands that grabbed my legs, and the man in the jersey in my apartment, and the face I saw in the cupboard as well. "It's gotta be because you made them angry, right?" B said. "Made them angry? Because I spent the night there? Maybe you did something. All I did was sleep. Maybe that's why they're angry." "The ghosts?" I laughed. "Look, whatever," B said and lit up a cigarette. Growing annoyed, I turned to A. "What now?" "An exorcism is all we can do, I think." "You really think that will help?" "Well, what else can we do?" "If they're angry, maybe I should go and apologize." "Apologize to who?" "Go back there and apologize to the ghosts." "What, you want to go back there again?" "I mean, I don't know if that guy in the jersey is still going to be there when I get back home, do I?" "No way. If you want to go, then you go by yourself. It wasn't like I was asking you to come with me in the first place." After that little exchange, I turned to A. "If he starts screaming again, call me, okay?" I returned home to get my own car and then made my way back to the abandoned building. It was late at night and I was driving by myself. The curves on the road up the mountain were rather sharp, and I felt yet another level of danger to what I was doing. I took a wrong turn on the way, but eventually I found my way back. It was then that I realized I didn't have a torch or anything on me to light the way. Well, I got out of the car anyway and made my way over. "I'm sorry," I yelled out into the darkness. There was no response. "Come on, at least reply or something," I muttered to myself. What the hell am I even doing? I felt a little embarrassed. I walked around the building using only my phone for light. "You don't need to be that angry. It was only one night," I said. "If you'd just told me to leave, then I would have walked home." Nobody else was there, and yet I kept muttering to myself. Honestly, I didn't want to go down there with no lights, but I started to think that the basement really was the problem, so I decided to finally go down there. As I made my way over, I sensed some presences that I hadn't before. "Oh, you're down here," I said, trying to act tough. "Don't suddenly appear behind me or anything like that," I said, and then I walked into the middle of the room. I could barely see anything in the darkness, but I stopped and said, "I won't come back again. I'm sorry." Then I waited. But nothing happened, and after waiting another 10 minutes, I felt the presences disappear. "Look, I don't mind if you appear, but please only do so at my place," I said, and then I left the basement. I went back to the car, and after looking at the building one more time, I went back down the mountain. I drove as slowly as I could, because I didn't want anything grabbing my legs again. But this time, someone grabbed my shoulders from behind. At first, the hands just grabbed me, but then I started to feel nails dig in. "That hurts," I said, but I continued driving slowly and safely so as not to crash. The nails dug in harder, and the pain got worse and worse, which just pissed me off, so I pulled over on the side of the road and screamed into the back. "I already apologized, so quit it already!" It was dark, but there was a woman with a terrifying look on her face sitting in the back, both her hands reaching out for my shoulders. Inside, I was terrified, but I looked straight at her and spat out. "What?" The nails in my shoulders loosened, and then finally, the sensation disappeared entirely. "Look, I really am sorry. I won't go back there again, okay?" I said. "I'm gonna face the front again, so please go somewhere else now. Please." I turned back to the front and started the car again. Once the curves ended and I reached a safe stretch of road, I turned to look in the back again, and the woman was gone. I was relieved. 2 days later, A called me again, saying that our friend was screaming, so I went straight over. I bent down and looked at my friend and said, "That's enough, man! Calm down!" Yet his screaming didn't stop. "If you don't shut the hell up, I'm seriously gonna hit you. You ready? 5, 4, 3. I started to count down, and then he fell silent. "What the hell is wrong with you?" "You're a shitty actor," I said, fed up. "I wasn't acting. I just suddenly came back to my senses," he said. It didn't matter either way to me, but his screams like he was possessed suddenly stopped after that. That's the end of my story. I still occasionally see strange things, even now, but I'm still living life to the fullest. When riding home from school one night, a young man stops by an old vending machine to get a drink. When he puts his hand in to take the can out, however, he experiences something sinister that may still be out to get him, even now. Find out what in Handshake. This is something I've only ever told a few of my friends, but I thought I'd write it down. Although my friends did laugh at me about it. I've had a lot of strange, questionable experiences throughout my life. I don't know if I have the ability to see the supernatural or whatever though. It's not like I've ever stood in the middle of a dark room and turned around and seen a headless person standing there or anything like that. But I have experienced a lot of things that made me think, well, that is real strange. And one of those things was the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my entire life. At the time, well, it was more than 8 years ago now. I was a struggling student at the time, working during the day and then attending classes at night. And so, by the time I finished classes, it was late each night. Normally, I would rush straight home, get ready for work the next day, and then go straight to bed. But this time around, the following day was a Saturday. It was a day off, so I decided to kick back, relax, and go for a nice, leisurely bike ride home instead. The road back home wasn't so much a road as it was a narrow path that extended between various rice fields. So it was honestly a pretty creepy place. As you can probably imagine, I was all alone in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by rice fields and trees, at 3 in the morning. Not only that, there were these realistic scarecrows with real mannequin heads all over the place watching me. Well, I had pretty much gotten used to those creepy things by that point anyway. On the way back, a vending machine I usually ignored caught my attention. Maybe because I had some rare change in my pocket for once. I wasn't even thirsty, but, you know. If you're from the countryside, you no doubt know how it is. But this wasn't a vending machine from one of the major manufacturers, you know? It was kinda like those long, thin coffee cans that you can get now, yeah? But in this vending machine, every single can was just like that. It was pretty anachronistic. They even came with prizes and such, like if you win then you can get another free, that sort of thing. The light above the vending machine buzzed and flickered, like it was about to go out. Being late night in the countryside, there were no cars out, so it was unbelievably quiet. the sound of the coins going into the machine was unnaturally loud. I put the coins in and pressed the button. Then the free chance light started beeping. It was oddly loud considering how quiet everything else was. Even if I win, it's not like I can drink another one anyway, I thought with a bitter smile, then bent down to grab my drink. The only light was that coming from the flashing, almost dead light above the machine, so I could barely see the entrance to get my drink. It was so dark. Where is my drink? I thought, fishing around for it. And then something grabbed my hand. Maybe you don't really get what I'm saying. Something inside the vending machine grabbed my hand. Kinda like we were shaking hands. My mind went blank for a moment. There was no mistaking it. It felt just like a hand. Not only did it feel like a hand, but its grip was getting stronger and stronger. Painfully so. Finally, I came back to my senses, screamed, and tried to pull my hand back out. It was holding on tight, but I managed to break free, got on my bike, and then pedaled as fast as I could the hell away from there. I was so confused that I don't really remember exactly what happened after that, but what I do clearly remember was the feeling of the other hand and the pee 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 sound of the vending machine going off far behind me. Come to think of it, the free chance thing usually stopped making noise about 5 seconds after you press the button, so why was it still going off? I didn't think much of it at the time, but now. I was too scared to go back to my house alone, so I rode straight to a friend's house instead. And that was absolutely the right choice. If I was alone, I probably would have lost my mind. And why was that? Well, I couldn't fix my hand. It was frozen in the handshake position for some reason, and I couldn't undo it. My friend thought that whatever was happening, it couldn't be anything good, so we both chanted a Buddhist chant until morning. And then, as morning came, it was like whatever had frozen my hand suddenly snapped, and the stiffness went away. After that, I couldn't put my hand in anything that had some sort of opening. Not vending machines, not post or letterboxes, nothing. I mean, something shook my hand. It might happen again. But that wasn't the end of the story. 2 years ago, so 6 years after that handshake, I returned to the countryside for a memorial service. I drove down that same path I hadn't taken since all those years prior. It was a back road I used as a shortcut, so thankfully, I never had to use it again up until graduation. But how can I put it? That place that I couldn't forget, that place that had caused me such trauma, I was like, well, let's go check it out again. I don't know why, but it was like something was leading me back there. Maybe that's the easiest way to put it. Something bad is gonna happen, I thought nervously as I drove, but it wasn't like that at all. That vending machine, it was gone. Of course it was. It was old even at the time, and another 8 years had passed since then. Needless to say, I was relieved. It was like the curse that had been cast over me all those years ago was finally broken. Now I can finally forget all about it, I thought. Seeing as I was finally back at home, I decided to go out for a drink with some of my old friends. It was great fun. I really wish that was the end of the story, but sadly, it wasn't. I was feeling great and just a little tipsy, so I decided to tell everyone what happened that night. I couldn't tell anyone about it 8 years ago because I didn't want to remember what happened. I think I probably wanted them all to laugh at me about it, like, "What the hell is that?" You know. then I could laugh at it too, and that would be the end of that unpleasant memory. That was what I wanted to happen. That was what should have happened. As I was rambling on, one of my friends suddenly interrupted me. "Hold on a minute." "What?" I said, and his answer completely sobered me up. I shouldn't have listened. I shouldn't have said anything. Why did I talk about it? Why? "I've never once seen a vending machine on that road," he said. The other 4 guys there agreed with him. "Come on, don't play me like that, man. Hey, you were the one who chanted with me all night until morning, yeah?" I felt like I was going to pass out. Kay, my friend I spent that night with, said he really knew nothing about any vending machine there. He didn't even remember anything about that night either. I didn't know what to say. I realized that my memories of that night were slowly fading away as well. How can I put it? It's like when you wake up from a dream, and even if you try to remember what happened, it slowly fades away, right? It was like remembering a dream. But I really did remember buying something from that vending machine, and I remembered what classes I took that night and everything. But it was also slipping from my mind, like it hadn't been real at all. Even though it was something that I wanted to forget, and yet couldn't. What I've written down here is all I can remember now. It's like I can feel the will of something at work, you know? I have this terrible feeling that once the memory is entirely gone, I'll once again put my hand into something and then it'll happen again. That horrible handshake. Sorry for writing so much. I wanted to write more details, but the memories are scarily mostly gone. By the way, I don't have amnesia or anything like that. This is just how it is. There's one more really important thing, so I'll write that down too. I mean, I'm kinda scared to forget it as well. This is the one thing I absolutely can't allow myself to forget. I now believe that the reason I was able to get out of that terribly strong grip was because of the charm I had on me at the time. This charm was actually made by my grandmother, who was rather good at dealing with things related to the other side, and it was a handmade charm that contained her power and a single strand of her hair. "There are lots of monsters in the countryside, after all," she said when she handed them out before she died. Of course, I received one as well, and I always carried it around with me in the hopes that it would protect me while out on the roads. Now I really do believe that it was my grandmother who helped me that time. If I didn't have it on me at the time, then I think that hand probably wouldn't have let me go. I suddenly had a terrifying thought as I went to write all this down, but I'd love to laugh it off like, no way that could be true. I think that perhaps the reason I'm losing my memories is because whatever it was that time wants me to forget about the charm. That charm I've been carrying around with me ever since that day. I intended to write all about it, and yet, for some reason, I forgot. And if I end up forgetting about the charm too, I think that'll be the end for me. I don't think it will let me go next time. Our last story for this week is a bizarre tale that, the more you think about it, the more horrifying you realize it is. Find out why in Open the Door. This happened when I started university and began living alone for the first time. The apartment I was living in at the time was a standard 2-room layout, cheap apartment designed for single students to live in. The building was old, and I honestly didn't get a good impression of the place as the real estate agent showed me around. But I didn't have much time until school started. I took my father with me to consult on the place and, in the end, decided I had little choice but to take it. I moved into an apartment on the second floor that faced the street below. I quickly moved in and then started school shortly thereafter. For a while, I struggled to get used to living alone in a new city, as well as school life, but about a month later, things started to calm down and become more familiar. One day, I rode home and then went through the common hallway at the rear of the lot. Bang! Suddenly I heard a loud sound from the room at the end of the hall. It was on the opposite side of the road on the first floor, the room on the opposite side of mine. What the? I thought, and as I got closer to it, this time I heard a series of bangs, like someone hitting a door, and the furious rattling of a doorknob. What on earth are they doing? I thought, confused, and looked at the apartment for a moment before I heard someone inside scream. "Hey, you're out there, right? I can't open my door. Open it from the outside for me." It was a man's deep voice, and he sounded annoyed and impatient. Looking back on it now, I should have just walked away, but I replied before I could stop myself. "What's wrong?" "I can't open my door. Can you open it from that side?" "I don't know. I looked over the door, but I couldn't see anything that might be preventing it from opening. The doorknob looked normal, so it was a little weird that he couldn't open it from the inside." There isn't anything out here preventing the door from opening, though." "That can't be. I can't open the door. Open it for me." He kept rattling the doorknob and banging on the door as he spoke. In reality, I knew that nobody lived in that apartment. When I was shown around, I asked the real estate which rooms were available, and this room was one of them. I remembered it because it seemed like a bad location with terrible lighting. I'd also seen that the room was empty when I looked through the window when passing by the rear of the lot earlier. There were no curtains, so I could see right in there. It was empty, with no furniture, and nothing to stop people from getting in or out. "Hey, open the door. You're out there, aren't you? So open the door." I ran away as the man continued yelling and banging on the door, making my hair stand on end. I didn't want to return to my own apartment, so I spent the night at a 24-hour family restaurant instead. In the end, I forced my father to pay for moving costs and moved to another apartment after only 2 months of living in that one. Who on earth was in that apartment? It wasn't like a thief would break into an empty room, right? I wondered what would have happened if I opened the door that night. Maybe that room had a shady history, but I still don't have the courage to look more into it. It's fine. I don't need to know, and I don't want to get involved with it any further. A big thank you and shout out to this week's Cummy Tier member, Baked Beans. It's thanks to your support, along with everyone else, that I'm able to keep doing this show, so thank you very much. Don't forget to pick up Yamakoa, The Haunting of Mount Yummy, available on Amazon right now, and check out our newly revamped merchandise store at kowabana.store. And if you'd like to chat about this week's stories, come and join us in the Kowabana Discord. You can find that link in the description or on kowabana.net. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TaraADevlin for exclusive bonus stories and extras, or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/KowabanaJapan for all sorts of Japanese horror you won't find anywhere else. Thanks guys. Stay safe, and I'll see you again next time for even more Kowabana. True Japanese scary stories from around the internet. Want even more scary stories? Head over to Kowabana.net for new translations every week. You can also join our Patreon for exclusive stories you won't find anywhere else. Head over to Kowabana.net now.